Hi, I'm Britt Johnston. Welcome to a session on private clouds. As a result of this session, you're going to learn about how you can build your own private cloud. In fact, we're going to show you how to do it in days instead of months as a result of this session. The essential element that we're going to talk about are appliances. And the first thing that we want to understand is the approach that we use to building those appliances. The first thing we do is start out with understanding of the workload. And in this case, we're looking at database consolidation. How do we take hundreds, if not thousands, of databases and put them in a common environment? And we look at that and we understand that workload. In fact, we've done research over 4 years to understand the best way to build that kind of system. And we've looked at different architectural approaches, which leads us to our second step. We want to look at various architectures. When we look at putting lots of databases together, we could do it by stacking schemas. We could put multiple instances on the same machines. And through that exploration, we've learned that by using virtualization, we create the optimum architecture that gives us both the flexibility that people need and the isolation that we need to create excellent solutions. Once we understand the architecture, we choose the software and hardware components that actually build the solution. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the session. As part of our appliances effort, we've built a family of appliances, and in fact I won't spend a lot of time on them, but it's worth understanding we've built appliances for BI, we've built appliances for data warehousing, and in this particular case we've built appliance for database consolidation that focuses on a private cloud solution. Now, many customers ask, why would I buy a solution on an appliance versus build it myself? And there's a couple factors here to keep in mind. The first is, it's a fast time to solution. So if you need something, you want something right now, we can very rapidly put an appliance in place, configure it, and put it in production in the most rapid time. Now, as part of that, you'll reduce a lot of risk. By buying a solution that's been pre-packaged, pre-optimized, you reduce the risk that the components and how they're integrated together have some problem. And rather than having to worry about all that testing, we do that as part of the engineering process itself. So we optimize the configuration, we worry about picking the appropriate reliability levels for the components that we have, and then make sure we assemble them in a way that provides the most reliable solution. And then lastly, we're able to make sure that we provide the highest performance out of that infrastructure. So rather than forgetting to set some important setting in the system and losing a lot of potential performance that might be there from all those components, we're able to make sure that all that is done correctly out of the box. The next thing you get from that type of solution is proven performance that is measured in a lab. So we go through the process of not only understanding the workload, but then creating a way to benchmark that workload so we can take the solutions that we build and make sure that they perform appropriately. We're able to augment the solution with software that's custom made to provide a better experience. And in the case of our consolidation appliance, I'll go through a little later some of those particular items. And lastly, we're able to provide a single call for support. So when you have a problem, if you have a problem, regardless of where in the system it is, you have one person you can call to get support on that. So let's look at a few of my favorite things about our consolidation appliance. In particular, this picture here shows this slide shows a picture of the appliance and what it looks like. It's actually available in two forms, a half rack and a full rack, and we'll explain a little bit of that later. There are so many things to talk about when we talk about our private cloud appliance. What I'd like to do in this session is really focus on three of the areas that I find most interesting. So you're getting actually my favorites in here. And the first of those is what I call factory optimized software. And this is not obvious to a lot of people. In building our database consolidation appliance, we've figured out how to create the software in the factory. So rather than taking an approach of assembling hardware in a lab and then installing the software on that, we actually manufacture the appliance with the software on it, and I'll explain a little bit about that. Now, how we figure out how to do that is that we use what we call the Microsoft private cloud fast track reference architecture. We've worked with the Hyper-V team and the Windows team to create a reference architecture that's the basis for how we do this. How we use Hyper-V, how we use Windows, and how we use System Center, and how we aggregate that software stack so that we can support hundreds to thousands of SQL Server instances. So we get input from the experts as part of that process. We've taken our design, we've reviewed it with the Windows team, with the Active Directory team, and the clustering teams within Microsoft. We've looked at the specifics around how to optimally configure Hyper-V across the hardware stack, how to make sure we design the right components and configure them for System Center. And then, of course, the SQL Server organization that I'm part of, we know how to configure and optimize the way SQL Server can be configured in there. So we create templates as part of the appliance so that when you need to create instances, we have an excellent starting point for you. Now, as I mentioned, that the fact that we factory build the software, and that's a unique aspect of this particular appliance. What that means is when you turn the thing on for the very first time in your lab, it's operational. And rather than installing a bunch of software and having to integrate it together and test that integration, what you do is focus on configuring the network and security infrastructure, and then that plugs into that operating system. So day one, it's an operational Hyper-V cluster that knows how to support hundreds of workloads and has a collection of infrastructure VMs that are pre-deployed on the appliance to handle all the hard stuff. Now you can see on the slide here that we have a list of components: the System Center Configuration Manager, Operations Manager, Virtual Machine Manager, and then of course a set of add-ons to that give us a portal and importantly as part of that assessment and planning. One of the things when we talk to customers about what they would like us to put in this kind of product is they said, spend some time, spend some money as part of your development process in making sure we can onboard our workloads. And so as part of building the appliance, we've worked with the Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit team and made sure that that tool knows how to target the specific appliance that we built. So you can now go, you can take that tool, which is downloadable off the web, and you can run that in your own environment. It can give you a report and tell you exactly how much consolidation appliance you might need. And that makes it really easy to understand what your needs are in your particular organization. Now, my second favorite thing is our elegant hardware. And I use the word elegant on purpose here. And the picture here is an example of that. The complexity of this solution requires about 7 different networks in the system. And if you can imagine what it might be to have 8 servers with 7 networks, that's a lot of cables. But in working with our partner, HP, in this particular appliance, we've been able to take 8 servers, build an incredibly powerful I/O subsystem, but eliminate a lot of the hardware complexity that normally would be in this system. We've eliminated over 100 cables. We've eliminated 12 switches. So in a full rack appliance, what might otherwise be a lot of real estate dedicated to expensive switches, we've been able to optimize the design and eliminate that. The result is a more reliable system that's easier to service. And in fact, you can see from the picture here, if there's a component failure, such as a power supply, that would need to get replaced, it's very easy that it's accessible to get in there. Often complex systems like this, even repairing them can cause problems because the cable density in the back can be an issue. So subtle things like cable design and layout are part of the process that we go through, and as a result, we're able to build a much more elegant design than typically would be found in most solutions like this. My last favorite item here is our scale-out ability. And I mentioned that the appliance is available in a half rack. You can see in the picture here on one end we have a half rack configuration. We've designed that so that it's upgradable while it's running to a full rack. So you can start with a half rack, you can upgrade to a full rack. Now if your needs are sufficient, you can deploy a multi-rack system. And in fact, we've worked with HP to make sure you can also create a data center pod environment. So if you need you need upwards of 10 racks or more, we have the ability to combine those in a container-based infrastructure so that you can have that approach. Some of our customers have container-based data center approaches, and so they can take that, use that style of deployment with the Appliance. So no matter what your needs are, start out with a half rack or grow, you can start with that point and then grow there where you need to go. All those upgrades can be done online, so you can effectively thin provision your private cloud using this particular appliance. Now, all that together sums up what I think of as my Fantastic 12 for the database private cloud. The first is that we've created a new SKU, a new software SKU that allows you to collect together all the infrastructure components and then have them pre-installed and available on the appliance. The second is we've created some special software to allow for load balancing of I/O. One of the things that really is not done in most private cloud infrastructure is dynamic load balancing around I/O, and we're able to do that with the appliance. We're able to provide you with a unified health model, and we have management packs that plug into the appliance that present your administrators with a unified health model so you can understand if there's any individual component that is not operating at full potential and identify that quickly. Normally you would see all those things spread out and divided up by hardware and software. We're able to take all the software infrastructure components, integrate them together, and present that in a single view. We've also provided a portal for self-service so that your business owners or business individuals can go off and create new services that they need to in the system without having to be an expert on the particulars of this kind of infrastructure. And then we have metering and billing to then go back to those businesses and charge them based on their use for the particular infrastructure that they need within the private cloud. We have dynamic load balancing using the Hyper-V live migration and storage migration features, and support all the features of VMM. In fact, that's a key item here. To get all of the features of VMM to light up, we have to create specific hardware and software integration points, and we've done that in this solution. Next point is around the fact that we've designed this around I/O intensive workloads. Our workload study, recall back to the beginning, we talked about a workload-based appliance and a deep understanding of that. That research has let us understand the workload to the point where we can make sure we've matched the appropriate processor, memory, network, and storage components together to create a solution. In fact, one of the most common things that we hear from customers is that in their own environments, they've mismatched often the I/O capabilities of the system, and as a result suffer significantly in terms of the service level that they're able to provide. Next point, the hardware is HA out of the box. There is no single point of failure. If a drive fails, if a server fails, if a switch fails, if a cable fails, any of those things that happen, all of those are handled by the hardware automatically, and you won't lose service as a result of those individual failures. In fact, for some customers, that HA level provides a new ability to provide service at a very low cost, and let me be specific about that. Typical workloads, as long as they can recover efficiently from a failure, that's often sufficient. So rather than having to provide instantaneous failover or recovery, being able to provide it in a fairly rapid amount of time without human intervention is the key offering. And one of the things that we can do with this particular hardware is we can restart the workloads automatically on a different server within our infrastructure. And so that provides a level of HA that typically has not existed. In the past, you had systems that were built usually with a failover cluster, so you'd have to have idle hardware sitting waiting for a failure to occur. In this case, we have an aggregate amount of hardware in our private cloud, and all we need to do is maintain some amount of excess capacity, some percentage of that's not being actively used. And then in the event of a failure, we can simply restart the workload. That provides a very cost-effective way to provide a service level that typically costs at least double in terms of hardware resources. Next point is about scalability. Remember that you can start with a half rack. In fact, some customers, when they look at the solution, they say, I definitely know I need to go in this direction. I'll buy a half rack and just deploy it and start with that. Because all the investment you make on that initial deployment using this kind of private cloud solution, you always bring forward. So you can upgrade that half rack to a full rack, and that initial investment continues to operate. In fact, there's no interruption in service. So you don't need to know exactly what you need to get started. You can start out with just a half rack. If you already know you need a lot of capacity, it's a scale-out infrastructure, and it scales linearly. You're not going to see your I/O infrastructure bottleneck as a result of growing this system. And we've specifically designed it so that it can handle that. Remember that it's operational private cloud at power on. So there's not a large service requirement. It doesn't take months of extensive consulting to configure and install the components. We found from talking with many customers that typically it can take 6 to 12 months to build this kind of infrastructure, and even then that's not necessarily going to give you a scale-out solution where you could continue to incrementally add to it. And I want to leave you with one point, which is that if there's a failure in the system, whether it's hardware and software, the way we've built this offering is it provides a single point of support. And so we've reduced the risk for you as a customer in deploying your private cloud by making it available in the form of an appliance. If you'd like to learn more about private clouds or SQL Server 2012, you can learn more at the Microsoft Virtual Academy. You can download SQL Server trial software, and you can go look at the other videos on other topics and learn a lot more about SQL Server 2012. Thanks for listening, and I hope you've learned about private clouds, and now you understand how you could, using an appliance, get your private cloud operational in days rather than in months. Thank you.